My technology is nuclear energy. I am interested in this topic despite of the dangers of nuclear power like Fukushima and Chernobyl. Nuclear energy is clean energy and can be used to avoid CO2 emissions to slow climate change. Furthermore, we need more electricity to power electric cars to get away from combustion engines and coal sources. Wind power and solar power are not always available and cannot be stored, even if the WHO, World Health Organization, has labeled nuclear energy as green energy. The media and many people still believe that nuclear energy gives off too much radiation and that it has a high risk of melting like Chernobyl, or it could also leak radioactive waste like Fukushima Daiichi. But that's not for all cases. Fukushima Daiichi originally leaked because of the tsunami that hit it. But since then, there have been more stricter tests to allow the power plants to work. The law of nuclear energy started in 1930 when a physicist named Enrico Fermi showed that neutrons could split atoms. He then led a team in 1942 that achieved the first nuclear chain reaction. From 1945 till 1947, the United States started their production of the Little Boy nuclear weapon. This weapon consisted of a gun-type bomb known as a Thin Man. The Little Boy weighed at 4,400 kilograms. It was 3 meters long, 71 centimeters thick, and filled with 64 kilograms of highly enriched uranium. On August 6, 1945, at 8:15 a.m., the Little Boy was dropped from the Boeing B-299 Superfortress Elena Gate, piloted by Colonel W. T. Betts, Jr., from the heights of 9,448 meters. The explosion was equivalent of 15 tons of TNT. On October 30, 1961, the Soviet Union tested one of the largest-scale nuclear weapons ever created. It was called the Tsar Bomba. It was 10 times more powerful than the other bombs used during World War II. During the Second World War, nuclear technology like bombs were made from energy released by splitting atoms of specific elements, like uranium. This was developed in 1940. Then, 10 years later, they used this knowledge and started using it for peaceful uses to control this new power of nuclear fusion. Then, during 1951, December 20, the EBRI became the first nuclear power plant to be able to produce electricity using atomic fusion. Then, on June 27, 1954, in Obninsk, outside of Moscow, the first nuclear power plant that will be able to connect to an external grid started its operation. From 1983 till 1986, the world's largest power plant was built. It was the Kashiwazaki Kiriwa of Japan. It holds a capacity of 7,965 megawatts, owned by the Tokyo Electricity Company, TEPCO. It was suspended in 2011 due to the testing of the NRA safety screening. Even with passing the test, they will need to suspend preparations of reactivating because of the envisaged order will forbid the TEPCO from filling the reactor with nuclear fuel. Nuclear energy has been used in the past to make bombs like the Little Boy and the Fat Man, which dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. But now, many times have we used it for good, for energy. But they ended up in incidents like the nuclear power plant leak and Fukushima Daiichi in 2011, Chernobyl disaster in 1986, the 3 Mile Island incident in 1979, and the SL Island, an incident in 1961. Nuclear energy has impacted many industries. In America, an average nuclear power plant that produces 1,000 megawatts already generates $470 million, and it already produces more than $40 million because of the total labor income. Nuclear power has a huge impact on consumers. Since nuclear power can be used for carbon-free electricity, it has small land footprints. A typical nuclear facility that produces 1,000 megawatts only takes up about 1 square mile, while a wind farm that produces the same amount of electricity only takes up 360 more land area, and a large-scale solar farm takes up 75 times more space. It has already nearly provided 2% of electricity in the United States. It's also the United States' largest source of clean energy. It makes up 60% of the emission-free electricity. Nuclear energy is in the seawater. The radiation can hurt ocean life in several ways, killing them instantly, creating mutations for the offspring, passing radioactive material through the food chain. On land, when we mine uranium, it can release high amounts of carbon dioxide, which can be released into the environment. This can also happen when they build new nuclear power plants. When transporting the radioactive waste, it also causes carbon dioxide emissions. Radioactive contaminations of the soil can decrease their fertility. These are made from global radionuclide fallout after nuclear weapons tests, the operation of nuclear facilities, and radioactive waste. The Chernobyl incident has ecological devastations to 10 square kilometer regions of pine trees that turned orange. It was then named the Red Forest. Mice, moths, and insects have also been impacted. It has affected their population size due to the radiation impact on their young. Insects were also affected. Some insect population came back due to migration into the area rather than the recovery of affected populations. But the next years following the disaster, animal species have changed their habitats, yet the Chernobyl area, abandoned by humans, has turned itself into a refuge for wildlife, allowing the increase of population and escape of human influence. I believe that in the future, if we study more about nuclear energy, we can slow down climate change. It can also lower the CO2 emissions since nuclear energy is more efficient than solar, hydro, or wind energy, since a power plant takes up less space than the other types. Furthermore, many countries have been giving in ideas on how to dispose of the nuclear waste, like laser pulsing. Laser pulsing is when you deliver a strong force in a brief moment. This idea was entered by Moore. This physicist was given the Nobel Prize for creating the most intense laser pulses ever created. He said, "The idea is to transmute this nuclear waste into new forms of atoms which don't have the problem of radioactivity." Nuclear energy, unlike solar and hydro energy, nuclear energy can be stored, and it also produces way more energy than the others. Using the heat made from nuclear power plants, we can use it for making hydrogen, which can then be used in fuel cells to help power cars. Furthermore, if we keep on testing and experimenting with nuclear energy, we can then use it in more versatile ways. Nuclear reactors have also been evolving and developing quickly. There is now reactors called sodium fast reactors. These reactors are labeled as the safest types since the fuel is already dissolved into liquid, and they operate in lower pressures, which can reduce the risk of meltdowns. Therefore, in the future, we can use nuclear energy to find different types of energy that could be even better for our environment.